Hello, today's Bible study comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verses 36 through 40, and it reads as follows. If anyone is worried that he might not be acting honorably toward the virgin he is engaged to, and if his passions are too strong and he feels he ought to marry, he should do as he wants. He is not sinning. They should get married. But the man who has settled the matter in his own mind, who is under no compulsion, but has control over his own will, and who has made up his mind not to marry the virgin, this man also does the right thing. So then, he who marries the virgin does right, but he who does not marry her does better. A woman is bound to her husband as long as he lives, but if her husband dies, she is free to marry anyone she wishes, but he must belong to the Lord. In my judgment, she is happier if she stays as she is, and I think that I too have the Spirit of God. Well, as we can see, Paul is addressing another matter. Um, and it says, but if any man thinks he is behaving improperly toward his virgin, if she is past the flower of youth, and thus it must be, let him do what he wishes. He does not sin, let them marry. Nevertheless, he who stands steadfast in his heart, having to no necessity, but has power over his own will, and has so determined in his heart that he will keep his virgin, does well. So then, he who gives her in marriage does well, but he who does not give her in marriage does better. And this is Paul talking in regards to what it sounds like an arranged marriage, and it reads a little better um, than the NIV version I just read in the King James version. If any man thinks he is behaving improperly towards his virgin, um, and Paul is talking about the father of his children. It could be a man or a woman. It doesn't say either or. Um, the man or woman at a marrying age. And this behavior improperly is just not allowing them to marry. Uh, and remember, Paul is single, and Paul sees singleness. Remember, that's his thing. He is single. Um, and in this case, this virgin it didn't say right away that it was a woman until it got to the end. Um, so and it talks to he and talks to she, but it tells you that this is for both. Let him do what he wishes. He does not sin, let them marry. Hey, it's not wrong for the father to let her or him get married. And this could be um, also if they don't want to get married, they're allowed to want to stay single. Either way is fine. If it's determined in his heart that he will keep his virgin, he does well. Now remember, Paul spoke about being single and the benefits it has, but Paul says that the singleness, although it has its benefits and he would recommend it, but Paul is saying, I'm not just going to recommend it to individuals, but to the parents. Hey, you marry off your son or daughter, I'm going to tell you about the single side, the single life. Now, there are some things that Paul does as he is single. It is not as Paul was going out there and interacting with women on a regular basis in any type, form, or fashion. Paul is going to tell them more than likely what your benefits are because he spoke of them for him and what it meant to him. And it was his servitude to the Lord. He didn't have those other responsibilities. So remember that. He who gives her in marriage does well, but he who does not give her in marriage does better. And remember, Paul said he liked the single life because he could serve God more. And it's not a choice between good and evil or right or wrong. Um, it's just for Paul, his present situation was he was single and he thought it was the best. Then it says a final reminder: a wife is bound by law as long as her husband lives, but if the husband dies, she is at liberty to be married to whom she wishes, only in the Lord. But she is happier if she remains as she is, according to my judgment, and I think I also have the Spirit of God. Well, if her husband dies, she's free to marry who she wants. And a widow, she got a right to remarry if she wants to. And then he says, but a Christian widow um, is truly only free to marry another Christian. He's saying that. But she is happier if she remains as she is, according to my judgment. Well, Paul still also believes that such a woman or man would be happier if they remained as they are, widowed. And that means single with a deceased spouse. Um, and the reason that is Paul is in that area, and he says, think about the fact that God could be calling you to do his work, and the responsibilities that were taken on with marriage are not helping you when it comes to your responsibilities to take with the Lord. You can concentrate on the Lord more, pretty much. But also remember, if that was to happen, you would have to be celibate. So, from what Paul has stated and Paul's belief, Paul has been celibate. Um, and please don't think that Paul has ever called sex evil, because it is proper between a married couple. But if you're not married, it's not supposed to happen. And what Paul says about his singleness is really just Paul's mentality towards serving the Lord. It gives him more opportunity, more ways, and more concentration on serving the Lord. And that's what Paul's telling them. Amen.